Hi, I'm Heather Hubbard. I went from being a lawyer and partner at one of the largest firms in America to becoming an online personality and successful entrepreneur. I know what it takes to rise to the top. I also know all too well the toll it can take on your health and personal life. So, how do you shine bright without burning out? How do you chase joy while achieving success? You're listening to the Hustle and Flow podcast. Welcome back to Hustle and Flow. I am your host, Heather Hubbard, and today we have special guest Natty Lewis. She is a true entrepreneur because she has started and sold seven companies. She's currently the visionary behind Ascend EQ, a company that dives into human emotions and how to use them to your advantage. She has 25 years of experience in marketing and sales, so she knows how people think. Her expertise extends far beyond traditional business strategies. She has delved deeply into understanding the human behavior, again, which you have to know from marketing and sales, particularly what drives people to initiate projects, but then prevents them from seeing them through to success. And I think some of you probably know a thing or two about that, as do I. We get excited and then we don't follow through. So I have so many questions. Let's please welcome to the show, Natty.
Thank you so much, Heather. It is a privilege to be here. I'm very excited.
All right. So given your background, how many companies that you have run, you've been in marketing, you've been in sales, why Ascend EQ? What really drove you to this passion project?
A study of my own behavior in running and owning businesses, the seven that I did. And I've also had the privilege and opportunity to work with a little over 200 companies worldwide now. And watching people not show up as themselves, watching people make emotional decisions that cost them a lot of money, and then watching people find miserable success. The number of people that I see in the world of business that are successful by all counts. They have the office, they have the name on the desk, they have the employees, they have the fancy clothes, they have the nice car, and they are miserable. And I thought this isn't the dream, right? This isn't why we start businesses. This isn't why we build and grow businesses. We don't build and grow to end in misery. We build and grow to end with true, lasting success. And that's not what I'm seeing in corporations around the world. And I had my own journey in that space as I had built my largest company yet, to my most successful measure yet, and I was the most miserable I had ever been, and started to deal with debilitating anxiety and panic attacks. And I've got kids at home, and I thought, what am I doing? I've built this supposedly the dream.
Yep.
And now what? Now I'm debilitated at being a mom or being a wife or being myself. I'm an athlete. I love to be active. I love to be outside. I hadn't played a sport or been outside in 2 years. What was I doing? And I started to just ask the questions, does it have to be this way? I think so many people believe, well, you got to sacrifice to succeed. And I have learned over the past several years and have started to implement as I've worked with corporations and executives and just high achievers, from athletes to musicians to business owners to entrepreneurs to just women who have chosen their career to be at home with kids, and they are high achieving women, that we can in fact have it all. It just has to be intentionally built that way.
Amen. I 100% agree with that. When people say you can't have it all or you can only have a little bit of it at a time, I'm like, I don't actually think that's true. I think as long as you are intentional and you're creating what you want, you can have it. So we are on the same page. I'm curious, what do you think it is that causes people to start following that path to success where they end up in misery?
I think a huge part of it has to do truly with identity. I think people start out with a vision of what they want and they start to create it, but in the process, they didn't first decide and recognize who they are and stay aligned with that in the pursuit of that vision. And so they get easily drawn about with who they need to become in order to achieve the vision. And it feels super real in the moment that I have to change to reach it. It's not true. Just feels real. As I've worked with, a good example of this is as I've worked with entertainers, people who have been in the entertainment industry, and they've got this vision, this picture of being on stages around the world to sold out crowds. And then somebody in a label somewhere tells them that the only way they're selling out a crowd is to take this approach with their music. And next
Yep.
thing you know, the way they write starts to change and the way they show up starts to change. And maybe they make it to the big stage, maybe they don't. And when they make it to the big stage, they always say, it didn't feel right. It didn't feel the way I thought it would. And I said, that's because when you pictured that big stage the first time, it was you standing on it. Now,
Hmm.
who the heck is standing on that stage? You don't even know.
Yeah.
And it's not any different when you take a woman who's like, I have so much to contribute and I want to start this company, and I start a company and they start to get success, but then they lose themselves and they feel like they lost communication and touch with their children, and they lost their relationship with their significant other, and their house is a mess, or they feel like they're a hot mess, but their business is a success. And they're like, my business is this, I don't even know who I am. I don't even like claiming the CEO label. And then next thing you know, we're dealing with imposter syndrome all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really think about it, how is it possible to be an imposter in your own business? It's yours. And yet we deal with this all the time because they lost who they were. That powerful, creative, nurturing, unbelievably unstoppable woman that decided to start a business as a mom and as a partner and as a woman of community. And somehow she decided that to be a CEO of her own company, she couldn't be all those things.
Hmm.
Feel like the misery comes from a loss of identity.
So, as you were talking about that, I was thinking about when I first started practicing law. And even in law school, we were very much, and I'll use the word groomed, to show up in a certain way in order to be accepted in the big fancy law firms. And then when we got into the big fancy law firms, it was here's how you show up. We would have associate meetings about how to be an appropriate associate. And in so many ways, it was not necessarily a robot, but very much trying to present in the way that was most likely to help you succeed. Because I'm a high achiever, I wanted to succeed. So it's like I can play that game, but I definitely lost myself along the way. So for those who are listening who aren't like us, they don't have businesses, they are in the corporate world and they are trying to impress and climb that ladder, but also want to retain who they are. What's your advice for how to approach that so that you can be successful in that world, but you can also remain true to yourself?
Yeah, my biggest piece of advice is create vision in alignment with identity. And what I mean by that is create the picture of you having the glass office, but then put yourself in the glass office. Don't put the woman you see in there now. I call this the devil wears Prada syndrome, and I'd call it that because of my own personal experience in corporate America. I had one woman that was at the top of my organization, one. It was all men and one woman. And I watched this woman because I wanted to achieve that height. I had career aspirations. The first part of my career was 14 years in corporate America, and it was all about climbing the corporate ladder. And I watched this woman stand in these meetings, and she was bold and people feared her, and she wore her stilettos to the office, and she had her power suit on, and she parked in her parking space, and she was, I mean, it really was like, wow, she is this unapologetic force. And I started to believe that in order to have the glass office on the ninth floor, I had to be that.
Mhm.
And so I started to picture that as associated with career and corporate success. And the problem is as you can see by my baseball cap today, I don't wear stilettos, right? And I didn't want to be boldly unapologetic in the meetings. I wanted to be wise, and I wanted to be smart, and I wanted to be the kind of person who believed every person in that meeting had a voice and an opinion that mattered. And if we took the collective whole, we would always get the best idea. And I didn't want people afraid to share their ideas with me. That's who I was. And it's not how I showed up as I started to rise the ranks. As I started to rise the ranks, the way I dressed changed, the way I showed up changed, the way I spoke to people changed. And I had what I would call a hinge point moment in my career where a gentleman who'd been working for me for 7 years, he watched me rise the ranks, and we were sitting in a meeting and we ended. And he stayed behind and he said, at the risk of my career, I can't hold my tongue any longer. And he said, if the old Natty would come back, this business would be thriving. And then he walked out the door.
Wow.
And I was just sitting there like, what was that? But I knew he was right because I didn't even like myself.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even like myself. I was miserable in my little glass office with my courtside seats. I was miserable. And I took that to heart and I started going back and I realized I had become the person I had watched. And I want you to think about this, especially as women in the culture of America. Name me a single movie that portrays a woman in corporate America climbing the ranks and succeeding that is not an absolute nightmare character.
Mm.
Or she's a hot mess. She's either a nightmare or a hot mess. Where is the woman who's got it together, who treats people the way she wants to treat people and shows up as herself? Where is that portrayed? Almost anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So the only picture or vision we all have in our minds of what that looks like, we start to go there. If you will figure out, who am I? How do I want to show up? When I'm in the glass office, what will that look like? You'll be able to hold an anchor point to who you are in pursuit of what you want, and you can have both. And as a matter of fact, I truly believe it's the only way you'll get both and be happy.
So one of the things that I do at my Joy in the Journey retreat, we always keep coming back to who am I and what do I want? And I firmly believe that we do have to keep coming back to it because we don't just decide it and then we go for the rest of our lives, because I feel like there's so much conditioning and so much noise all around us on social
Mhm.
media, in the news, just culturally, that it is so easy, I think, to lose our identity without even meaning to. Do you have tips, or is there or certain things that you do? I mean, assuming that you agree with that, that we have to constantly keep coming back to who am I and how do I want to show up?
Oh, that's an absolute, and Matt, it's been proven to be true based on the way our brain actually operates. So we have something called a reticular activating system in our brain, the RAS. And its job, just to not, we're not going to get geeky, but we're going to just point this out because it's really important that people understand that what you're saying here is not just a nice idea and it's not the world according to Heather. It's like, it is factual truth for how our brains operate. The reticular activating system, the way it works is like, if you're just sitting there right now, Heather, you know 1,000 facts that you're not calling attention to right now. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you know that my hat is black and my shirt is blue, and we're both using microphones, and you have sticky notes behind you. And we could list 1,000 things that none of us right now are thinking about, and we know them to be a fact.
Mm-hmm.
The way we pull to the forefront of that reticular activating system, what it knows it must focus on and it must bring to fruition, is what we bring in the present tense and what we bring to right now. So every single client that I work with starts every single day writing what we call their I am statement, which is their identity statement. It's the way we start the day. It can take you 3 seconds, and it's how you start your day, because we're going to bring to the reticular activating system your true who are you and how are you going to show up today. And we do that by finding what we call power words. So a word that you find powerful, something that you feel energy in, that you feel describes you as you. So to give you an example, I am an unstoppable woman of God and an effective teacher of truth. And I write that every day because that's how I want to show up, whether I'm being a mom or being a wife or being on a podcast or running my business or consulting with any given company or working with one of my private clients. I'm going to show up like that. And every client I have writes these things, and it's amazing to watch. Yesterday I had a client who's been struggling in his business. He's got employees walking all over him right now and he doesn't know how to rein it in. And he landed on an I am statement that, as I am a focused, respected, and determined leader. And he started writing that, and you just watched him go from this like adult man that looks scared in a corner to like standing in his own 2 feet and saying that is who I am. I said, well, what
Yeah.
does that guy do? And he's like, well, this is how he handles the situation. And so when you know who you are and you'll capture it every day, keep coming back to it every day.
Mm-hmm.
You can use it as a little litmus test. So you're about to engage in something in business, in your work life, in your home life, whatever it might be. And maybe you know what to do and maybe you don't, but there is never a time I don't know what to do when I don't stop first and say, how does an unstoppable woman of God and an effective teacher of truth handle this situation? And then I get to show up as me.
I love that. That is so beautiful and so powerful. That I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. Is that so? I know like we're in the season of goals and following through, and so many of us, we go to do something and then we stop. Is that similar? Is that related to the concept of identity or is it different?
It is rooted in identity because all motivation is rooted in identity. I want you to think about the opposite. Let's say, for example, that you've told yourself for your whole life that you're fat, or even just the
Mhm.
last couple of years. Let's talk about gyms for a minute, right? People
Yep.
set a New Year's resolution or a goal that they're going to go to the gym, they're going to get fit, they're going to get healthy. But they set it as I'm going to get fit and I'm going to get healthy and I'm going to go to the gym and I want to and I will someday be my size 6 that I'm after. Whatever that is, they paint that picture into the future. Identity demands that we claim it right now. I am. Because what is your motivation to keep going to the gym if I am fat? I am overweight. I am lazy. I am. Think of all the derogatory terms that go on right up here, the identity we claim that we don't even want.
Right.
Or how you can't out motivate that identity. So you might be going to the gym. You might force yourself to get your butt out of bed and show up Monday morning, the first Monday of January to the gym, because that's the goal you set. But if the person walking into that gym is I am fat and I am overweight and I am looking around me and I don't fit here and everybody here is skinnier than I am and I am hungry, how long can that I am fat keep going to the gym? They won't keep going to the gym. They can't keep coming to the gym because their brain is literally shooting in opposition to them to get them to come back to safety because it's like your brain's not going to do something it to prove you wrong, right? It's like, no, 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 you're fat people to go to the gym. Next thing you know, you're going to be sick the very next morning, or you're going to
Yeah.
wake
I mean,
up
you're
and you're
trying to
not going to
force
feel good.
discipline. You're like, this is just about willpower. It's just about
Yeah.
discipline. I'm going to punish myself. I'm going to force myself.
And it's not. If you won't set a goal to go to the gym, but instead you'll set a vision of what does it look like on the other side? Paint the picture.
Yeah.
What does your body look like? What does it feel like to be able to do what you're capable of doing, to be able to have to put the clothes on that you want to wear? Paint the picture, hold the picture of you in that perfect outfit. The shirt that sits beautifully over your curves and they're the exact curves you want. Paint that picture. And then tell me, who is that woman? Because if she is fit or she is active or she's alive or she is vibrant, then claim that. Because I am a vibrant, fit, and active woman and I show up for myself every day, that woman goes to the gym because it's who she is. And that woman will keep going to the gym. And so there is that picture in alignment with identity that is the driver of motivation. All of motivation is rooted in identity. And the
Mm-hmm.
opposite is true. So you need to figure out what is the narrative you've told yourself. If you're trying to do something in the new year that you're like, I don't know why I keep doing this. I've set the same resolution like 7 years in a row and I've never finished the darn thing. I want you to ask yourself, what are you claiming about the I am? Like, who's the woman showing up that keeps quitting? Is it I'm a failure? Is it I'm not enough? Is it I'm an imposter? Is it I'm fat? Whatever that might be. Is it I'm impatient? Because if you claim that, you'll show up as that and you can't out discipline that thing. You can't out act it. You gotta out claim it. You've got to claim new and then lean into that identity in alignment with what you want. Then you'll stay motivated through to the end. And to your point, you have to keep coming back to it. That's why we write it every day. Because I don't let myself go 3 months and then check in and be like, am I showing up as what were my power words again? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that doesn't work, right? We have to stay in that.
I think so much of personal and professional development is rooted around this concept of I'm going to change, I am going to become. And
Mhm.
I think that is exactly what you're saying. You're not going to change, you're not going to become, you already are, right? Like
Mhm.
it's just let her be. You don't have to become her, you can just be her because you are her.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. It's logical when we all break it down. If I am going to, but I don't do now, how does going to ever happen? I get the opportunity to work in prisons once a week. I get to go in and work with the inmate population and teach these types of principles and emotional intelligence. And I tell them every time, I say, look, if the start of your sentence to me about your life after prison starts with when I get out, I will, then my sentence back to you is welcome back. The definition of recidivism, you keep coming back because you keep thinking when you get out, you'll do different, you'll be different, you'll have different. No, you won't. Not if you don't do different, be different, and have different today. Can tomorrow be different? So
Yeah.
if today I'll claim that I'm nurturing, if today I'll claim that I'm powerful, what do I do today so that 3 months from now I look back and I'm like, dang, I'm a powerful woman. Look what I accomplished. We can't have it one day. We have to be it and do it today so that we have it that day.
So, what happens when we claim our identity and then we have these emotions come up
Yeah.
that where we don't feel good or we don't feel motivated or we feel like things aren't going our way that day or there could be a million different things that we're feeling at any given moment, but
Mhm.
I think we both know that having the thought, trying to stand in the thought, it works if there's nothing else going on and we don't have any feelings. But I know that you're really dialed into emotions.
Yeah.
When those emotions come up, how do you recognize them and work through them so that they don't control you?
Yeah. Are you okay if I take just a second and outline the brain? Just for a second, it would be
Would
a
love
super
for it.
simple
Yeah.
outline. Okay. So I'm going to use my hand as a model of the brain.
Okay.
The front fingers are our cerebral cortex, or our logic and reason happen with these babies, and they're connected to our brainstem, which is what controls the whole deal. So if you thought about this as a nice computer, it's sending messages down the operating system. This is how we show up wise. All the things we've learned, all the things we want, they flow right through with our logic and reason. What they lay on top of right here, the hippocampus, is all pictures and memories. And these
Mm-hmm.
pictures and memories can be both real or imagined. The brain does not delineate between them. And then this amygdala, which is going to be represented by my thumb, this is where emotions kick in. And this is where the brain has its job to tell us whether we're safe or unsafe in any given situation. And that can be physical or emotional safety. So just to give you an example of what you're talking about, we set this picture, this goal. We're going to be fit, but we don't claim the I am a fit. Maybe we do. Maybe we even go as far to be like, I am fit. And we show up to the gym and we start looking around and we see all of these people and we see this woman over there in her yoga pants and her sports bra and her six-pack abs. And we're like, oh no. Like I got my oversized t-shirt on and my rolls are hanging out the side on my little left side. And I got to try to pull my shirt out and rearrange myself. The picture that's happening right here is what picture? Is it the new picture that you're creating for after, or do old pictures start showing up?
Yeah.
For some people, those old pictures are rough. They're even traumatic. They're pictures of being teased as a kid or having going through, middle school or junior high, which are like the horrifying years for all young ladies. And they've got these pictures of not good enough and not strong enough and not pretty enough and not skinny enough. And whatever those pictures are, they start coming to the surface as memories or even as imagined possibilities of like, just this isn't good for me.
Mm.
So the alarm system starts going off that says you're not safe right now. This is not an emotionally safe space for you. And you get very emotional because the reason why, when this alarm goes off, it does something called flips the lid. It literally removes logic and reason from the equation for a minute in order for you to just react to the situation. Now, what do most people do? They leave the gym.
Yeah.
They just leave. And then they cry themselves home and they say, why do I keep trying this? I'm not. And then they spiral in that thought. And the reason they can't get it back together is because this thing is not joined the party. So our logical, rational side that knows the only way I actually get what I want is to stay at the gym is not even at the party. It's not even sending messages. And so we end up just emotionally reacting to the situation. Now, the only way to engage in this, is to physically engage with it, because when this alarm goes off, it's designed to basically shoot blood to the extremities. It's preparing for fight or flight,
Mm-hmm.
preparing for us to either take a hit or deliver a hit or run farther and faster than we've ever run before. So the biggest thing that helps women, that is like the biggest aha moment for them, is most women try to deal with emotions by sitting down. When you get really emotional, I want you to just think about, what do you do? Most women sit down, maybe they cry a little bit, Maybe they wrap up in a blanket. Maybe they lay down. But
Mhm.
women traditionally get stationary and then they got to think about it. Here's the problem with thinking about it right now. Your thinker, your cognitive rational brain is not at the party.
Mm.
You have to physically engage with these emotions. And that might look like going for a walk. It might look like doing some push-ups. If you're a fighter, you need an intense expression. It might look like some burpees. And if you really are out of shape, it might only look like 2 or 3 burpees before you're feeling 100 times better, right? It's about expressing physically and honoring the emotion that just felt where you just felt unsafe. You cannot deal with that emotion in a stationary position. So when I work with women in corporate America that go into big meetings and they feel like their opinion was just trampled on, they're surrounded by a room of men and they feel inadequate. They feel like an imposter. They feel scared. This sucker's going off. Is it in? And then they get nervous because now, crap, I'm going to get emotional in the middle of this meeting and then I'm going to look like an idiot. And I can't get emotional right now. It's not my job. That I get them to recognize where you're at emotionally and then regulate. Tense the body, take deep breaths, stand up and go for a walk. Excuse yourself to go to the bathroom. Put cold water under your hands. Put cold water on your face if you're getting hot. Air box in the room. Go in the bathroom and do air squats. There has been many a public restroom that I have air squatted in the stall because I'm going to bring myself back. I am going to bring this back because I am unstoppable when I have a brain. And all of the work and the effort and the knowledge and the wisdom I've gained over time is driving the bus. I'm unstoppable. When I'm here, I'm not unstoppable. I'm getting completely ripped around by my emotions. And so we got to do this first. And that's
Mhm.
the step most people miss. They get emotional and rightfully so, and they just sit with it. And it's not a sitting moment. First, we got to move, then we can sit.
I think so many of us were taught as children and as professionals, but especially as women, men too, though, really,
Yeah.
that when you have an emotion, you're just supposed to push it down.
Yeah.
And so I love when you're saying, like, we sit, because even if we're not sitting, right, like we're in a public situation, we're standing, we try to just ignore it.
Mhm.
We just say, I'm going to push this down and I'm not going to feel it. But the truth is you are feeling it.
That's
so
exactly right.
I I really appreciate that advice, um, based on the science, to move your body,
Yeah.
do
It
something to
really
let your
is.
brain come back.
It really is cultural. Think about it. Think about how many times you were told, stop crying.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to cry about that. That is not something you need to be emotional about. These words come out of people's mouths all the time. So what does that mean? Like what are we supposed to do with it when we feel things? And so yeah, we shove. But what are we shoving? It's physical. Why does anxiety feel like hamsters that are running through your stomach, or your heart feels like you're having a heart attack, or your head hurts, or your eyes go blurry? Why would it feel that way if it's not physical?
Yeah.
You have to physically engage. And what people don't do, they don't physically engage because they get so scared of the emotion because it's so intense and so all encompassing. And they get scared of the heart that feels like it's having a heart attack, or the blurry vision, or the stomach. It's like, I need you not to be afraid of it. I need you to recognize that every emotion has a physical symptom. And I need you to engage physically with that symptom. And then you can think about it. Don't sit down and start thinking about it. You can't think right now. The thinker is not at the party. And so
That is so helpful.
if we'll just move, it's amazing what it does. Like I want you to think, for anybody listening, I want you to think of that last time that somebody sent you what I like to call the nasty gram. It's an email or a post on social media for the influencers out there, or the entertainers that they just, everybody thinks they've got an opinion. They send a nasty gram about whatever you just posted or whatever you've done or your idea that came up in the board meeting. And you read this email. I want you to think of what happens, because it is, yes, it's emotional, but I want you to think about what happens physically.
Mm.
You get a little bit hot. Maybe your heart starts to race. Maybe your stomach starts to churn. Maybe your feet start bouncing under the desk, and maybe your hands get cold and clammy. But then what do? We sit there and we're like, hit reply, and maybe something comes out, maybe it doesn't. Maybe we send it in that moment, which is going to now create a whole bombshell of problems. And that one email is going to consume your entire day. Or maybe you're the kind that just shuts it off and just sits there and takes all the crap and doesn't do a thing about it. Well, guess what? That email is going to control your entire day.
Yep.
If you will, in that moment, stand up and allow yourself the opportunity to express emotionally what you just felt, whether that looks like going to the bathroom and putting cold on when you got hot, doing some air squats to release some energy because you felt like your feet were just going to move, going for a walk. If you would take 3 minutes, it only takes 3 minutes to close this lid. If you'll just take 3 minutes and then come back to your desk, you will be able to logically and rationally respond in whatever way you've decided is aligned with who I am. How does an unstoppable woman of God and an effective teacher of truth respond to this situation? You know what? I don't send an email. I walk my little hind parts over to their desk and I talk to them because I've got my emotional crap together. I feel confident in doing that. And so then I know how to respond to that situation when I come back. And guess what? I get resolution. Think about how much more productive and effective I am for the rest of the day because I figured out how to be emotionally smart and emotionally wise and emotionally resilient and emotionally intelligent in a single moment. And that's really how it starts to impact our whole lives.
I love it. I cannot wait to put into practice what you just shared because I have never heard that before. And I feel like I read up a lot. I hear a lot. I have never heard the movement piece with emotions before. And I mean, I've heard certain tips and tricks, but I am going to immediately start putting that into practice. And I already know it's going to work. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to put that into practice. I hope all of you listening will as well. We are already at time. I know we could talk for hours about this. This is so fascinating. You are so knowledgeable with all of this. Where can people learn more about you and what you do?
Yeah, so my Instagram handle is natty.o.lewis if they want to reach out. Or Ascend EQ is our company. We have our product is called Level Up, and that is the program. And we operate inside of a framework. We teach people a framework for how to actually handle all the aspects of life, spiritual, physical, professional, and personal, and how to show up as exactly who they want to be to get exactly what they want.
I love it. So wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on today and being so generous with your time and your advice. And everyone, go check out Natty's work. I think it's going to impact all of us. Thank you so much, Natty.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me for this week's podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, give the episode a like and leave a comment below so we can keep the conversation going. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a future episode or announcement. Listening on Apple, Spotify, or another podcast app, you can watch the video and join in the after show conversation by visiting hustleandflowpodcast.com.